So that is basically what an inverter is. It takes a DC power, that's from the battery power, converts it from the battery power to AC power, so you can hook up things like a refrigerator. Hi, I'm Roger. Welcome back to my channel. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about inverters. I'm going to be, telling you about, what it is, what you can use an inverter for, and how you go about choosing an inverter. So I'm going to be covering all of those in this video. Thank you for stopping by again. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate you hitting that subscription button, becoming a subscriber of this channel, and also pressing that notification bell. Yeah, man, that should really help you also, so that when I upload these videos, you don't have to go digging through the piles of videos on YouTube to find my channel. I'd really appreciate that. Like up the videos as you watch the videos, you get involved from the videos, like them, and also share this and other videos that you may happen to watch. Now, looking at an inverter. Basically, an inverter is a device that takes DC power, that is the battery power from your motor vehicle, and it converts it into AC power. And this AC power now is what we would need to power things like appliances, devices, equipment that generally needs 110 volts to 220 volts to operate. So that is basically what it does. So before I even proceed, let me just invite you also to check out my other video. So I did a video just recently looking at generators, and all of this is a part of a series of videos that I'm doing to sensitize persons to these resources that we can acquire and utilize, especially during this period that we're going through, the hurricane season. And of course, it has been announced that this hurricane season is going to be a pretty much active one, and we would have seen the devastation of Hurricane Beryl. All right, so check out that video. I'm going to put a link somewhere up there. All right, so let us proceed. So that is basically what an inverter is. It takes a DC power, that's from the battery power, converts it from the battery power to AC power, so you can hook up things like a refrigerator, fan, light. You can charge a phone, charge a laptop from that AC power. No, the next thing that I want to share with you is, or the question the question you perhaps may be asking is, why do you need an inverter? Should you go out and purchase an inverter? And I would say definitely, more so if you have a motor vehicle, because without a motor vehicle, the inverter pretty much wouldn't have much use to you. The inverter would need to have some battery source. So generally, you find that the inverter is associated with the motor vehicle. So I just spoke about the hurricane. So in a situation where we have a hurricane that would have passed through, we're left without electricity supply, you can use the inverter to power AC equipment, as I would have mentioned before, devices, appliances, or to charge some of these things, the cell phones, the smartphones, the laptops, the gaming devices, and so forth. Or it may be that you are that person who works on the road, and you may need to charge things like your laptop regularly, or you may work with power tools, you need to have them charging periodically. So in that sense, an inverter would be an asset to such an individual. Now, inverters come in different sizes, and the size here now is rated in terms of wattage. So we have like 350 watt inverter, 500 watt, 1200 watt, 2000 watts, and higher. So there are different wattages, and what it comes down to really is your need. So the next thing that I'm going to be looking at now is, how do you go about choosing an inverter? How do you know what inverter, what size inverter in terms of the wattage to get for your particular situation? And again, I would have covered extensively this particular topic here now in the previous video looking at generators. So the principle that I introduced there is the same principle I'm going to introduce here, and it is that before you go to purchase an inverter, what you need to do is to consider what it is that you want to power from, or what you want to use the inverter to power. Now, after you have gone through and you have made that determination, what you need to do is to calculate the wattage. You're going to need to add up all of the wattages. So first of all, list the devices, the appliances, the equipment that you want to power from this inverter, and you're going to then next to each device or appliance or equipment, put the wattage. And you can get the wattage from the user manual for each of these items, or you can check the there's generally a sticker on the things like the refrigerator, the laptop and so forth. Or you can look at the adapter or the power cord. It will generally give you that information there, the wattage. If you do not see the wattage, what you can do is that you can multiply the voltage times the amperage to get the wattage. Now, having calculated the wattage, the total wattage need, what you need now, you need to have a buffer. So you need to have like a 20% buffer. So let's just say that your total, consumption need comes to say 2000 watts. No, you should not go and just buy just a bare basic 2000 watt inverter. You need to add 20% to that. So you'll be looking at something like a 3000, 4000 watt inverter. And the reason for that is that if you are overloading the inverter, you can, you stand the possibility, the chance of damaging the equipment, the appliances, the devices that you connect to the inverter, and also the inverter itself. So you can fry it. You don't want to have that happening, right? Okay, so that is how you do it. So just to reinforce, what you need to do is to list the devices that you want to run on the inverter, list the wattages, add up those, add 20% for buffer, and then that will give you the total wattage the total wattage inverter that you need to go out and get. But in addition to that, there's also the surge. There's also the surge or the peak watt. So you need to also look at that. So when there are some devices like a refrigerator, for instance, or some devices that suck a lot of heat. When you turn them on, you're going to find that there's going to be a whole chunk of current that it demands to start the device up. So you need to have that being a part of the calculation of the total wattage that you will need. So you're going to include that in the total calculation to determine the size wattage inverter that you need to get. Now, in addition to that, there are basically two different types of inverters. You have the pure sine inverters, and you have the modified sine inverters. Now, the pure sine, that's SINE inverters, what they do is that they produce, right, practically the type of current that you would get from the grid. So it's basically, very pure. And this type of electricity that is produced is more so suited for sensitive devices, things like your laptop. All right, and then now we have the modified sine inverters, which generate, less desirable, grid type current. So when you go shopping for your inverter, you need to, have that factored into the things that you look for. Next, I have here a 1500 watt inverter, and I'm going to be sharing with you, things that typically something like this can run. So it's very light. So this weighs, it's 2 pounds, right? So it's a 2 pounder, very light. And this 1500 watt inverter will be able to, do things like charge, like a laptop or laptops, your smartphone, your basic stuff, to power, the lightings. It will be able to power refrigerators up to about 800 watts thereabout. Similarly, microwaves up to about 800 watts. And as I mentioned before, you have to consider the peak wattage. So, don't go taking, your refrigerator or the microwave and don't connecting it to something like this, a 1500 watt inverter, without doing the, proper calculations. You have to make sure, you have to, first of all, check the voltage, especially these large appliances and devices. You have to check the wattage. That's a running wattage. You also have to check the surge or the peak wattage before you go putting it on that. All right. And remember, I've spoken about buffer before. So this 1500 watt inverter, really and truly, I should not be putting load. The total load that I should be putting on this should be in the region of about 1200 watts. Right. So, I should, at any given time, if I'm running multiple devices on it, or, any single device on it, I should not be exceeding 1200 watts, in light of what I'd said before, to prevent, possible damage to the unit itself and to the device or appliance or equipment that I have connected to the inverter. All right. So, those are some basic things that you can convert to, you can connect to the inverter, basic household items, as I mentioned before, your light in your laptop, refrigerator, again, the wattage, so we're looking at, I would say, peaking or tapering off at about 800 watts. they're about, television, set and so forth. You can run that from, this size inverter. Now, if you, excuse me, if you have, and again, as I alluded to earlier, when you go into shopping to shop for an inverter, you have to consider your need. You have to consider what it is that you want to power, what you want to run, and you need to do the maths before you go purchase an inverter. Now, finally, how do you connect an inverter to your car, and to have the devices that you want or appliances that you have, working through the inverter? And it's pretty simple. So there are two options. The first option is that you can connect this through, using the cigarette lighters. This comes with a number of components. So you have the cigarette lighter cable, and the end of the cigarette lighter cable. It has two, what you call it now, terminals. So you have two wires here, one for positive and one for negative, and they are color coded. So it's a matter of removing the knobs here, connecting red to red, putting the knob back on for security. Similarly, removing the black knob here, attaching this lead here. Yeah, but it will be lead, not terminal. So connecting the black lead to that part there. And then this part, the cigarette lighter part, will go into the cigarette lighter port in the motor vehicle. And I should also say, and let me just stress here, that when you're going to be using the cigarette lighter to power the unit, it should tip off at about 200 watts. So you should not be connecting any device to the inverter that is going to demand more than 150 to about 200 watts. Now, if the wattage of the device or equipment or appliance exceeds 200 watts, what you need to do is that you need to connect the unit, that is the inverter, directly to the battery terminal. So you need to connect it directly to the battery, the motor vehicle, for that extra demand. Because the thing with the cigarette lighter is that it only supplies, X amount of current via the cigarette lighter. All right. So that's a couple tips here. All right. So that's basically it. So just to run through again, an inverter, very useful. As you would have seen in post Hurricane Beryl. Also, if you work on the road, it can be a very good, asset to you to charge your devices. And also, to choose an inverter, you need to consider, first of all, the total amount of, the wattage, the total wattage, including the peak or the surge wattage of the device, appliance equipment that you want to power. So add up all of those to get the total wattage that you need. And then you're going to use that information, add 20% to that, and you're going to use that now to purchase the inverter. All right, so that's it, looking at, an inverter, what it is, so you can use it, so you can make your life that much more better. All right, I'm Roger, and please remember, hit that subscription button if you haven't yet done so. The notification bell, also the like button, share the video, and also check out the video that I mentioned before, the previous video looking at, how you go about shopping for a generator. All right, thank you again for stopping by, and see you again in the next video. Take care.